Welcome to the Afterspin, opinions from thought leaders, just available on our website. I want to ask John and Chris, this past week, a three-judge panel of state judges struck down part of the 2017 law passed by the legislature that combined the State Board of Elections with the Ethics Board and specified how board members will be named. Tell us what you think of that latest ruling, what it said, and how it's going to impact this year's elections. John?
Well, I did read the ruling, and I asked some lawyers about it, and they weren't, the ones that I asked were not particularly surprised. Remember, they were simply implementing the Supreme Court decision on this question of the selection of those 8 members.
Right.
The original bill had it 4 and 4, Democratic and Republican. That was deemed under some recent law to take away the governor's ability to have an influence on the direction of policy. So the way the legislature redid it was to add a 9th member who would be unaffiliated, and to change it in such a way they would argue that it complies with the Supreme Court. The governor's side was upset that the 3-judge panel didn't strike down the entire law. I would have been very surprised if they'd struck down the entire law, because the Supreme Court didn't say that that the election board had to be partisan. It didn't say that. And I also think, as a political matter, that the governor has a lot of ammunition he could shoot at the legislature. Insisting that the elections board be partisan rather than bipartisan or nonpartisan is not the best message for him.
Well, I don't disagree with the ruling, but I disagree with the last statement. And remember that there is still a case, I don't know how far it'll go, that says the actions taken in that special session, which include this law, are unconstitutional because the session didn't give the public enough time to have input and participate. But this has been a completely political animal from the beginning. We've had state board of elections run by the governor's party with Democratic governors and Republican governors. It was only when this legislature was confronted for the first time, this Republican legislature, with the Democratic governor with the election of Roy Cooper, that they held an unannounced special session and dramatically changed how our elections are run in North Carolina. Expecting the governor not to fight that after 200 years of precedent would be silly. And whether you like it or not, I'm not sure we've heard the last from the courts. I think the governor is still considering what else he can do under the court system.
I'm still not really clear. So what did they say? How are we going to do this elections board?
What they said was that the previous selection process in the bill was null and void because of the Supreme Court decision, which is absolutely right.
So what are we going to do?
Well, we still have, under the 3-judge panel ruling, we have a combined ethics and elections board, which was unclear until the ruling. That is still standing.
No way of nominating
and we have
members.
We have a law that has now been enacted that creates a system where there will be 9 members instead of 8. Now, what Chris is getting at is that new law is going to be challenged. But in the meantime, we have an elections board and ethics board combined, and it didn't get struck down the way the governor's council wanted.
So, Chris, how's that going to affect the 2018 elections?
Well, I think we'll be able to have I think the elections will go on. I have confidence in the staff there. It is worth noting that the law the General Assembly passed was partisan because it let the Republicans chair the Board of Elections in the even-numbered years, which is when we have all the elections. So to call this a nonpartisan board when you give the Republicans the ability to run the board when we have elections is ridiculous.
Well, thank you for watching the Afterspin. We'll have more video all during the week on ncspin.com.